I walked into the Christmas brunch with my daughter. My mom rolled her eyes and said, "Wish you'd asked before showing up." My daughter whispered, "Should we go, Mama?" I nodded. We left without a scene. But after 2 days my phone was exploding with pleas for help. I didn't even want to go. That's the truth. There were 100 reasons to stay home. But when your 2-year-old is twirling in her Christmas dress, clapping at cartoon snowflakes, asking when she gets to see Grandma, how do you explain that Grandma might not want to see her? So I told myself to be the bigger person. I packed homemade cinnamon rolls. I dressed my daughter in the red velvet dress with the little gold bow she picked out herself. She kept repeating Merry Christmas in her tiny voice while we drove, like she was practicing for something important. My mom's house was already full when we pulled into the driveway. Every car was someone who would hug each other, take photos in front of the tree, pretend the whole year had been perfect. I used to be part of that photo. Not anymore. I didn't call ahead. Yeah, I know. But we'd done Christmas brunch every year of my life. It wasn't a thing you needed an invite to. Until apparently this year. When I opened the front door, no one even turned their head. They were already eating, talking, laughing. My sister was wearing some designer dress like she was at a gala, and my dad was pouring champagne into flutes like it was a celebration. Then my mom saw me. She didn't blink, didn't move from her chair. She just said it like I was a stranger standing in her living room. Wish you'd asked before showing up. So, no one else said anything, not even hi. I glanced at my sister. She just raised her eyebrows and kept chewing like I was background noise. My daughter tightened her grip on my hand and whispered, "Should we go, Mama?" I nodded. We left without anyone getting up. Not one person followed us outside. Not even my dad. It was like we had never been part of that family to begin with. I buckled her into her car seat while she asked if Santa was mad at us. I didn't answer. I couldn't. We drove home in silence. She fell asleep on the way, so I carried her inside, heated up some frozen pancakes, and let her open her stocking in her pajamas on the couch. She didn't know the difference. I wish I didn't either. 2 days passed. I didn't hear a thing from any of them. Then my phone exploded. 27 missed calls. 7 voicemails. Half of them from my sister. The rest from my mom, my dad, and even my cousin in Arizona who hadn't called me in 2 years. I didn't listen to the messages at first, but the texts were coming in too fast to ignore. "Please call. We need to talk. It's an emergency. Can you help us, please?" Suddenly, after months of silence, after getting kicked out on Christmas, they needed me. Badly. I didn't call back. Not right away. I let the messages pile up for another hour while my daughter napped, her little hands still clutching the toy train Santa brought her. I made coffee. I sat on the floor and stared at the wall. It felt weird getting so many texts from people who had made it crystal clear I wasn't welcome. By the time I gave in and listened to the first voicemail, I already had a feeling it wasn't just drama. It was the way they sounded desperate in their text. Not angry. Not passive-aggressive. Just desperate. The first voicemail was my mom. Her voice was shaking. Something about a pipe bursting upstairs, flooding the living room. The ceiling collapsed. The lights went out. Most of the bedrooms were soaked. Insurance was dragging its feet and she didn't know where they'd sleep. The next voicemail was my sister. She tried to sound calm, but she was definitely spiraling. Her room, where she and her son slept, was unlivable. She said she remembered my apartment had a guest room. And wouldn't it be a great time to show forgiveness? For the family to pull together? I almost laughed. I'd lived in that guest room once. When I left my ex with a toddler and nowhere to go, they let me crash for a few weeks. That turned into 6 months of being reminded daily that I was a burden. My sister especially. She used to say things like, "Some of us work hard for this house," or, "At least you don't have to pay rent, right?" So no. I didn't feel guilty ignoring her call. But then my dad texted. Just one line. "Ashley, please. Your grandmother's photo albums were ruined. Your mother is a wreck." That one hit a little different. My grandma died when I was 13 and her photo albums were sacred in our house. My mom used to take them out every Thanksgiving. I guess even I didn't want to imagine them destroyed. But still I didn't reply. Not that day. Not even the next. When I finally responded, I texted just 2 words. "I'm sorry." My sister blew up immediately. "Seriously? That's it? You're a selfish little brat. Always have been. I hope you're happy living your pathetic little life alone." Then she called me a stupid daughter. Told me I was dead to her. Said she would make sure my parents never spoke to me again. And just like that, I lost my whole family. Not because I yelled. Not because I fought. But because I didn't say yes. It was weirdly quiet after that. No more messages. No more voicemails. I thought I'd feel worse. I didn't. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing after people who only loved me when they needed something. The first few days after that were quiet in a way that almost felt fake. Like the calm before something cracks. My daughter didn't notice anything was wrong. She played with her toys, sang Christmas songs she'd half memorized, and pointed out snowflakes on the window like nothing had changed. Maybe nothing had, for her. But for me, it was the first Christmas in my life where I didn't feel guilty for existing. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not even my neighbor who always stops me in the hallway to ask about my family. I just said we had a quiet holiday this year. She smiled and said those are the best kind. But the silence didn't last. About a week after Christmas, my dad showed up outside my apartment. No warning. Just knocked like he hadn't ignored me on Christmas Day. I opened the door just enough to see his face. He looked older. More tired. He asked if we could talk. Said he didn't agree with what happened, but he also didn't stop it. And that he regretted that. He had this plastic bag with some broken picture frames in it. One of them still had water stains across the glass. He said they were all staying in a motel near the highway. That the house was a disaster. Mold already starting in the walls. Contractors ghosted them. Insurance wasn't moving fast enough. My mom was crying every night. My sister was fighting with everyone. Then he looked me straight in the face and said, "Your sister said we can stay with you." Like it had already been decided. That's when it hit me, this wasn't an apology. It was a plan. One they made without me. I didn't even flinch. I told him no. Calm. Simple. Just no. He didn't get mad right away. He just stared like I'd spoken in another language. Like it didn't compute. I said it again. Odette. Not this time. He left without another word. But that night my sister messaged me from someone else's number. "I always knew you were nothing but a mistake. Hope you enjoy your empty little life." She blocked me right after. My mom too. Like they were all just waiting for an excuse to write me off for good. But I didn't cry. I just sat with my daughter watching her line up stuffed animals in a row like they were her students. She made one of them sing Jingle Bells. And I realized I wasn't alone. Not really. I was just free. They kicked me out on Christmas. But now they were the ones locked out. Not by accident. By choice. It was New Year's Eve when I got the next surprise. I wasn't planning anything big. Just a movie night with my daughter, popcorn, and those little confetti poppers you twist at midnight. I figured we'd both be asleep by 10 anyway. Around 7 p.m. the buzzer rang downstairs. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I assumed it was a delivery. When I checked the intercom I froze. It was Kyle. My sister's ex-husband. I hadn't seen or spoken to him since the custody drama last year. He and my sister had one of those ugly breakups where no one came out clean. She always painted him as some deadbeat who didn't care about their son. But the few times I'd seen them together before it all blew up, he seemed calm. Said even. I almost didn't let him in. But curiosity got the better of me. When I opened the door he looked surprised like he expected me to slam it. He got straight to the point. "Your sister told everyone you were hiding money from the family." I blinked. "She said you got a payout from the divorce. That you were sitting on savings while they were drowning." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Savings? I was 2 steps from picking up night shifts at the diner down the street. Then he said something that stopped me cold. "She said your daughter's dad left you a settlement. That you never told anyone." I felt like the floor shifted under me. That lie was so specific it almost sounded real. And the worst part? I knew exactly where it came from. When I first moved back home I had some cash saved. Not much. But enough to get us through. My sister had asked about it once. Where it came from. I'd brushed it off. Apparently she turned that into a whole story. A rich one. And now my entire family thought I had turned my back on them while sitting on stacks of secret money. Kyle looked at me and asked one question. "Is any of it true?" I told him no. That I was barely covering daycare and rent. That I had no magic fund. He nodded like he already knew. Then he dropped another surprise. "I want to try for custody again. But I need help. Someone who's not on her side. Someone who's seen what she's like when no one's watching." I stared at him. He was asking me to testify. Against my sister. The same sister who had just tried to force herself into my home. Who turned my own parents against me. Who had been manipulating everyone quietly for years. He left me his lawyer's number and told me to think about it. I closed the door and just stood there. And that's when the next text came in. This time from an unknown number. "Ashley, I know things got messy. But we really need a place. Please. I'll do anything." It was my mom. I didn't answer. Instead I walked over to my daughter, sat beside her and helped her pick out a movie for the night. We ate popcorn on the floor. She fell asleep before the ball dropped. Me. I felt more powerful than I had in my entire life. New Year's Day started with silence. For once it wasn't a warning or a calm before chaos. It was real, clean silence. No phone calls. No guilt hanging in the air. Just me and my daughter, warm under a blanket eating toaster waffles while she watched cartoons. But it didn't last. By noon my phone buzzed again. Another message from a number I didn't recognize. It was long, angry, and signed with my mother's name. He said I was being cruel. Said I was punishing them for mistakes that didn't concern me. That I was twisting the family apart out of spite. She accused me of being manipulative, of brainwashing my daughter, of turning her against her own blood. She claimed I was entertaining Kyle's lies just to get attention. And then, at the very end, she wrote something that sat in my chest like a stone. "You are not my daughter anymore." I stared at the screen for a full minute. Not even shocked. Like I'd seen it coming. Maybe I had. In pieces. In her silence. In her refusal to even say Merry Christmas. In the way she always believed my sister's stories over mine. So it stung. There's no manual for how it feels to be disowned by your own mother in a text message. But I didn't reply. I took a screenshot. Saved it. 2 hours later I got a message from my cousin Melissa. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. She said she heard about what I was trying to do to the family. That my sister was devastated. That I needed to grow up and stop tearing people down just because I was angry. I asked her flat out, did she know they kicked me and my 2-year-old out on Christmas morning? She didn't answer. That night, after my daughter went to bed, I found the manila folder I had shoved in the back of my closet last year. I had kept everything. Screenshots, voice memos, texts from my sister asking me to lie for her, asking me to cover for her when she left her kid with me to go clear her head. Messages where she bragged about getting money from my parents and not telling her ex. I hadn't looked at them in months. But I read through every single one. And then I met with Kyle's lawyer the next day. He was polite. Methodical. Said they weren't looking to drag anyone through the mud. They just wanted proof that my sister wasn't stable enough to have full custody. That her son deserved better. That maybe with someone neutral speaking up the court would finally listen. He asked me if I'd be willing to testify. I didn't say yes. Not yet. That evening another unknown number lit up my screen. This time I answered. It was my dad. He sounded defeated. Like someone who had just realized the ground he was standing on wasn't as solid as he thought. He said my sister had told them I came to Christmas to start a fight. That I wanted to humiliate them. That I'd threatened her. I asked him one thing. Do you believe her? There was silence. Then he said I don't know anymore. That was all I needed. I hung up without saying goodbye. And that night I opened my laptop and emailed Kyle's lawyer a single sentence. You have my full cooperation. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closing a door that should have been shut a long time ago. The week after I sent that email to Kyle's lawyer, I kept waiting for the fallout. I thought maybe my mom would call again. That my dad would leave one of those vague voicemails like he used to when I was a teenager and he didn't want to pick sides. I thought my sister would blow up online or send something nasty through someone else's phone again. But nothing happened. No one came to my door. No one messaged me. They just disappeared like I never existed. And honestly, that was the loudest silence of all. Not a peaceful one, not yet. More like the moment after something breaks and you're standing there holding the sharpest piece. And still I didn't regret it. I had told the truth. Finally. Without softening it or burying it to keep someone else comfortable. And that truth had weight. Kyle's lawyer texted to say that my testimony, the records I had, the timeline, it all mattered more than I realized. They were filing a motion to adjust custody. And based on what was already on file, the court had granted a hearing date sooner than expected. He ended the message with, "You may have changed that boy's future." I stared at those words for a long time. I thought about my nephew, how many times I'd watched him fall asleep in my lap while my sister was out somewhere lying about her location. How many mornings he'd woken up in a house where love had conditions. It wasn't just about me anymore. It never was. That weekend I took my daughter to a winter festival a few towns over. It was the kind of thing I used to imagine being too tired for, too broke for, too emotionally drained to enjoy. But we went anyway. She picked a snowflake-shaped lollipop and begged to ride the tiny spinning bear ride until I ran out of tickets. She didn't ask about grandma. She didn't mention my sister. She didn't seem to notice anything missing. And maybe that's because for her nothing was. She still had everything that mattered. On the way home she fell asleep in the backseat with a balloon tied to her wrist and snow stuck to her boots. I didn't cry, but I did feel something shift inside of me. Something real. Like peace finally cracking through the noise. By the time New Year's Eve rolled around, I didn't even check my phone at midnight. No part of me was waiting for a message. The past was too heavy to drag into this new year. On New Year's Day, I took down the tree and put away the tiny velvet dress she wore to brunch. The one she never got to show anyone. I boxed it up along with the cinnamon roll recipe I had printed out and never used again. And I made a promise to myself I knew I'd keep. We're done chasing people who only come knocking when they need something. My daughter will grow up knowing that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up when it's hard, who stays when it's inconvenient, and who tells the truth, even when it shakes the ground. They kicked us out on Christmas. They made it clear where we stood. And I finally understood what it meant to walk away from people who never really saw me, just the version they needed me to be. The new year didn't come with fireworks or a miracle, but it came with freedom. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. It's been 3 weeks since I testified. The court hasn't made a final decision yet, but Kyle says things are shifting. His son has started spending weekends with him again. Supervised for now, but consistent. He called me last night to say thank you. I could hear the kid laughing in the background, playing some video game, asking for snacks. That laugh used to echo through my parents' house. Now it sounds lighter. Like it's coming from a place where no one's pretending. I haven't heard a single word from my family. Not a birthday reminder. Not a check-in. Not even an accidental like on social media. And I've never slept better. My daughter and I have a new routine. Breakfast on the floor. Grocery trips where she gets to pick one thing we don't need. Movie nights every Friday. No drama. No walking on eggshells. Just small, quiet moments I never had growing up. A friend at work asked if I miss them. I said sometimes, but only the version of them I wished existed. Not the one that kicked us out and rewrote the story to make it our fault. Some people ask when I'm going to forgive. What they don't understand is, I already did. Forgiveness isn't letting them back in. Forgiveness is choosing peace and not needing them to understand why. And honestly, I don't think I want them to. I don't think I want them to. I don't think I want them